A very warm and hearty good afternoon, dear parents, students, teachers, respectable principal ma'am, and our guest of honor, Dr. Poonam Devdutt. It is my pleasure to extend a cheerful welcome to you all to the day, which I'm hopeful will inspire ideas and discussions around the ways we can make a difference in our children's lives in collaboration with our parents. At the Millennium School, Sector 119, Noida, we not only believe in doing different things, we also believe in doing things differently. During the current times, our children have become confined to the four walls of our homes. This being the second consecutive year of the so-called new normal, it is certainly not easy for our children and parents as well. Keeping this in mind, we have designed a series wherein we will be inviting eminent personalities from various walks of life to assist and help our children as well as parents in coping with the lifestyle changes introduced by the pandemic. At the Millennium School, Sector 119 Noida, we strongly believe that education is not only restricted and confined to academic excellence, it also incorporates the need to provide a happy learning environment to our children. As a part of the initiative, the first session has been devoted to Dr. Poonam Devdutt, who has taken various initiatives in the field of psychology and has offered assistance to the children as well as parents. She is a renowned consultant psychologist and is associated with schools like the Doon School and Welham Boys School, Dehradun, Delhi Public School, and Army Public School, to name a few. She is also associated with various universities, institutes, and organizations of repute. She's been credited with over 200 workshops and with other organizations. She's also a CPSC panelist since June 2000, providing consulting to students of classes 10th and 12th. She's been conferred with Medat Ratna Award in the year 2002, Nari Shakti Award in the year 2014, and is an active member of National Academy of Psychology and the Indian Association of Applied Psychology. So I would like to request Dr. Poonam Devdutt ma'am to kindly share her views and wisdom with us.
Unmute कैसे करूँ? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, ma'am, for the introduction. And thank you, Dr. Chadda, Principal, Millennium School, for organizing this wonderful series of talks for parents and for inviting me here to share some of my ideas with the parents. It's always a pleasure for me to speak to parents. As a psychologist and as an educationist, I realize that especially for young children, the background and the family support which children get from their parents is vital for their full development. We visualize the teaching learning process as a triangle. So on one side you have the child, on the other side you have the teacher, but the base of the triangle is formed by the family and especially the parents, because it is the parents who form the most vital link. And we also know that this is the time when the foundation for the child's personality, the foundation for the child's future is being laid. And we also know that for any building, the most important part is the foundation. If the foundation is strong, the building can go up to any height. But if the foundation itself is weak, then the building is always unstable. As psychologists, we emphasize the fact that especially the first 5 years and to a greater or lesser extent, the first 10 years of a child's life are absolutely vital. If at this time the child gets a supporting environment, he gets adequate emotional nourishment. I'm not just talking about physical nourishment, but emotional nourishment. And if he gets a, an encouraging environment, that is the best way to bring up the child. So once again, I would like to thank the school for inviting me, and I would like to welcome all the parents who are on board in this meeting, because it is with their cooperation that the school can achieve the best for the child. So it is important to have discussions and dialogue with parents, because this is the process in which the school can share what the school is doing, and the parents can share whatever challenges they may be facing or whatever they are doing, so that together they can do the best for the child. It's also important for the parents and the school to come together, because both are interested ultimately in the welfare of the child. The parents want it, the parents want the best for their child, and the school wants the best for its children. So when the objective is the same, then it's always good to have a dialogue. A dialogue also becomes necessary because of the immense disruption that we have faced in the last 1 year. So I'm sure all the parents, all the children, as well as the teachers have seen the past 1 year as a challenge, as a difficult time. And no doubt it has been difficult. For different people, it has been difficult in different ways. For some people who are in the frontline workers, for example, for them it is difficult because they are the ones who are in the direct line of exposure. For some who may have fallen ill, the health issue has been there. Some people may have lost their loved ones. Some people have suffered challenges at work. There have been layoffs. People have been losing their jobs, or people have been suffering losses in their business. And if we come to the students, for the students also, it has been difficult, because for them, their routine has been disrupted. Especially for young children, a routine or a structured life is very important. And I will just now talk about the psychological significance of having structure in your life. But before that, I would like to address the issues of the parents. So for parents, it's been a double challenge. They have parenting, I would say, at best or in the best of times, is a difficult task. It requires tremendous patience, requires tremendous hard work and compassion to bring up children. So even at the best of times, it is tough. And now, with all the disruption that's going on in our social life, in our economic life, in our health life, it has become even more of a challenge. So how can we deal with this challenge? That is what we're going to talk about in this session. What we can do as parents to do the best for our children, and also as individuals, how we can face this extremely disturbing situation that we see around us. Now, if you sit with a group of people, you will always see that most people are focused on the problem. That is, whether you open the TV news or whether you sit with a group of people or connect with anyone, everybody is talking about how difficult the situation is, how difficult the health situation is, what's happening to the economy, what's happening on the political front. So we are all the time repeating the problem. You will see very few people are really focusing on the solution. So the first thing that we have to ask ourselves whenever we are thinking about dealing with COVID situations or with COVID times, we have to ask ourselves, are we problem oriented or are we solution oriented? Now, what do I mean by these two terms? When I say problem oriented, it means that we are only repeating the problem. We are either complaining or we are grumbling or we are getting anxious, repeating the problem. But will repeating the problem lead to a solution? No. Being solution oriented means that first we accept that yes, there is a problem. Acceptance is the first step, and acceptance, psychologically, acceptance is a very, very important concept whenever we think of any change. It's only after we accept a situation, then only we can go to find the solution. Once we know, yes, this is it, this is the situation, then we can take the next step. Okay, what are we going to do about it? How can we handle it? How can we get out of it? But that acceptance for some people can be very difficult. Sometimes you will see anybody who has suffered a difficult situation, a constant refrain, a constant thing that they say is, why did this happen to me? Supposing there's been a loss of any kind, it could be economic or it could be loss of a bereavement or any sudden misfortune. And a very common question that comes is, why has it happened? Why has it happened? Why has it happened to me? Why not to anyone else? And as long as we are asking why, we are away from acceptance. So yes, the question why will come to the mind. That's a natural part of it. But we have to go beyond the why. And ultimately, we have to come to a state of acceptance that yes, okay, this has happened. Only then can we start thinking of constructive action. So the first thing which I would like to suggest for my parents is to accept the situation. Yes, the pandemic is here and is likely to stay with us for some time. Initially, when the pandemic started, then sometimes there was, of course, people were anxious, people were worried, but there was also hope that, okay, it will be gone in 6 months, it will be gone in 9 months, it will be gone in a year. But today, a year has passed and it is still very much there. Yes, this is not to say it's always going to be there. A time will come when it will be ended. A time will come when it will be over. But till then, we have to see what is the best that we can do for ourselves as well as for our children. So I'm sure that all our parents have their own set of situations, their own set of circumstances with regard to their life. But today what we're going to focus on is your situation with regard to your children. And I'm sure many of you feel that your parenting skills are being put to the test. You want to do the best for your children, but things seem to be, one difficulty after the other keeps coming up. So the first thing that I would like to suggest is that we keep our attitude positive. What do I mean when I say have a positive attitude? I mean that no matter how bad the situation, we have to see that there has to be some good that can come out of this situation. Rather than taking it as a problem or rather than taking it as a challenge, we try to see what is the opportunity in this situation. Can anything good be done with it? Like, for instance, let me explain with the help of an example. So, you may say, what good can come out of a pandemic? But yes, one good that has come out of it is that your children are with you in the house. You're getting an opportunity, you're getting time to spend with your children. Earlier, there were so many parents who would complain, oh, my husband has no time to be with the children. He's so busy with his work. There's no time to play with the children. There's no time to interact with the children. Some fathers would say, we hardly ever get to see the children because we leave early for work, and by the time we get home, children are in bed. So we don't get to see our children. But now, life has thrown up a situation where children are at home and we have time to spend with our children. So let us see that as a positive thing. So earlier, we thought there was less time with children. Now, we have enough time with children. And let us then put this time to good use. So this is what I mean when I say that in every situation, something good can come out. So another point that we have to keep in mind is that no matter how anxious we are, no matter what our worries, it is important to focus on action. If we only focus on the worries, if we only focus on the problems, then nothing will get solved. But if the moment we start saying that, okay, this is the issue, so what action can I take which will bring me out of it? That's the time then when things start improving. And there's another benefit of action. One is that then your mind is no longer preoccupied with the problem. You have no time to be anxious. And the other is that when you take the right action, then the right consequence will also follow. So action, being action oriented is also important. That's a very important parenting skill that we can practice during COVID time. Now, with this combination, a combination of a positive attitude and a combination of being action oriented, if we combine these two, then no task is too difficult. So I understand the challenges of parents in this time. Number one, when children are at home all the time, one challenge is to keep them occupied, to see that they are not bored all the time, or they are not making mischief all the time, or they are not getting into trouble all the time. Another, of course, a very real challenge is the education and the learning part, which the school is making every attempt to deal with. So online classes are being held, teachers are available, your principal is available. So I think you're all very lucky parents to be part of the Millennium School, a school which is forward-looking and so concerned. And in fact, this meeting that we are having, this session that we are having, is an example of how concerned the school is about not only your children's well-being, but also your well-being as a parent. And I think that is a very, very significant aspect. So parents, as I said, there are several challenges that you are facing, and it is up to us now to rise to this challenge and to also see the positive aspect of this challenge. So the positive aspect is that yes, we are not able to meet each other physically, but we have all become techno savvy. Many of us who earlier didn't know how to handle the laptop or how to handle a tablet or how to use the internet or how to use all these different platforms, the virtual meetings, the necessity has been such that we have been forced to learn. So in that sense, we've been able to advance our own learning. We have learned to become techno savvy. We have learned to start using this technology. And one of the uses of that technology is that we can connect with people who are far away. For example, today I'm sitting in a far off place and I'm addressing you all in Noida. So this is another wonder of our technology. So let us acknowledge that yes, these are certain things that we have learned, we have grown, we have developed. Then coming to your children's online sessions, some parents may find that challenging. Some parents may feel that they are not able to sit with the children all the time. But you will realize that even if you're not able to sit with your child is quite capable of attending the meeting even by himself. Why do I say that? Because children take to technology more easily as compared to adults. We become scared of the gadgets and we don't know how to handle it. But you just give your phone to a child and he will do all the functions and he'll perform all the tasks without any difficulty. So do not take that as a burden. If you're able to be with your child, that's very good. If you're able to support him, that's very good. But otherwise, this is one thing which the children are also able to do very well by themselves. All they need is the supervision. So yes, if you are in the vicinity, you are watching what's happening, then you will be able to give the necessary support wherever required. So how else can we make this time a meaningful time? So parenting here is all about making proper utilization of this time so that we have no regrets later on. So as I said, this time can be regarded as a bonus time rather than thinking of it as a burden that now children are at home all the time, I don't know what to do with them. Rather than that, if we look upon it as a bonus, that this is a time, extra time, which we have received for our children. And how does this extra time benefit us? It will benefit us if we use it right. So why am I talking about, you will say we are going to talk about parenting, so why am I talking about time? Yes, time is of the essence. Why? Because time is constantly moving forward. Sometimes it happens that in our worries, in our anxieties, we become kind of paralyzed. We don't act. And even when we are not acting, time is passing. So we have to realize that time will pass whether we use it or not. In relation to time, we say either you use it or you lose it. So now you have to decide, do you want to use this extra time which you got with your children or do you want to lose it? So if we want to use it, what is the best thing that we can do? So parents, as parents of small children, your children are all in the growing stage where they have to learn the basics and the foundations of their skills. And what are the skills which children learn right now? If you look at education, then the skills that they learn are writing, reading, and calculations. And apart from that, there are skills like physical skills and emotional skills also, which children have to learn. So let us first talk about the educational part. So all your children are in small classes. This is a time where the burden of the curriculum is not too much. But this is a time where we can focus on building up their skills. For example, some of you may be experiencing that my child writes very slowly. That's a very common problem among parents, that the child is not able to write fast enough and his work gets left behind. Or some parents feel that my child is not good enough with math. Another parent may feel my child is weak in mathematics or any other subject. It could be any other subject. So parents, this is a time where you can help your children to work on their weak areas. This is the time where you can give them some extra practice so that once that basic skill is learned, then when they get back to the regular classroom, they will be in a better position. So let me just explain how, for example, since writing, slow writing is a very common problem. So if you feel that your child's handwriting is not very good or he's not able to write very fast, what can you do about it? So this is the time when the child is at home. If you take out half an hour or even 20 minutes in one day to give him some writing practice, you will find that that 20 minutes per day or that half an hour per day, if you do it consistently over 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, the end of it, you will find what a significant change it has made in the child's writing skills. Now here, you may say, yes, I give him practice sometimes. But the word which I want to emphasize here is regularity. You see, writing is a skill. What is a skill? Skill is something which you have to do, which you have to perform. Knowledge is in the mind, but skill is what you do with your hand or with your body. So writing is a skill. Like playing an instrument is a skill. Riding a bicycle is a skill. So for any skill, the psychological fact is that you become good in a skill only by practicing it. For example, a singer. A singer becomes a good singer only if he is doing regular practice. A player, a runner. A player is a good player only if he is regularly practicing his game. Even top cricketers, they go for regular practice because they understand the importance of practice in the skill. So likewise, for your children, if you want your child to be skilled in writing, or to be skilled in reading, or to be skilled in performing calculations, we need to give him practice. But very often, where do we miss out? We miss out if we are not regular. Now, let me do a simple calculation with you. So I said half an hour of writing every day. Half an hour writing works out to 3 hours for 6 days. If you take the working week, 6 days, Sunday is 3 days. So 3 hours per week. Now, if you say, oh, on one day when I'm free, I'll give him 3 hours of writing practice. But one day you give him 3 hours of writing practice and every day you give half an hour, which is going to be better? Can you make a guess? The half an hour daily will give you better results. Because the body, when it is learning a task, it needs that regularity. Even the mind needs that regularity. And this is a mistake when we make, when we do last minute study. For example, you will see some children, they will study just before an exam and they will say, okay, yes, I got good enough marks. But if you ask that child after 6 months, what was it that he studied for his exam? If he has done last minute study, he will have forgotten it after a period of time. But that child who has been a regular studious child, who's been doing regular work, he will remember his material much longer. So parents, for any skill, I would suggest use short periods of time for your children because your children are in the younger age group. They cannot sit for a long period of time. Very often I see what parents do that, okay, throughout the week, the child is not doing much, the child is enjoying. On the weekend, the parent feels that now I have a full day free, so let me sit with him from morning to night and I'll make him do everything. Okay, yes, you may make him sit, you may make him do something, but that's not fair on the child because the child's attention span is not very long. What do I mean by attention span? Attention span is the child's ability to concentrate for a given amount of time. So you will see that small children are not able to concentrate on a single thing for a very long time. Like if you want a small child of this age to sit for 3 hours at a stretch and work, it will not be feasible for the average child. For the average child of 5-6 years or up to 10 years, if you make him sit for about half an hour to 1 hour, that will be comfortable. But if we think that we will just force him to sit for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, that is not a wise thing to do. Because the child's attention span is not that much. So when we are dealing with children, we have to deal with their special abilities and their special limitations. So for small children of this age, a shorter time period of work are advisable. So not more than 1 hour at a stretch. Then you can give him a gap and then he can come back again and do some more work. But do not try to make him sit for too long at one stretch. So this is one thing which I wanted to emphasize, that we can work on the weak areas of the child. But even if you're not, if the child, supposing your child is good and there's no weak area, even then, some regular amount of study is very important. Because for this age, the child cannot retain also for very long. So if maybe you teach him today or tomorrow and then you give a gap for 10 days and he's not studying anything in the 10 days, then after 10 days you will see that much of what he had learned he may have forgotten. So again, during these times, please give some time for study on your own. That is, some study time. It could be half an hour or it could be 1 hour, depending on your child's capacity and your own free time. But some amount of self-study is required to keep the child abreast of what the school is teaching. If we give too long a gap, the child will find it difficult when he does get back into the classroom. It will be difficult for him to catch up. So don't allow your children to fall back. Whatever the school is teaching, just support that with some effort of your own and some regular practice. Now, how will we manage all this? You will say that I have so many duties, I have so much work to do. How do I find the time? So again, parents, I would like to suggest that your children during this time when they are at home, they need a regular schedule. It's very easy for us to fall into relaxed habits when we know that child has not got to go to school. We may not make him wake up on time. We may not have very regular meal times at home. We allow the child to stay up very late. So what happens is very often that the entire routine goes haywire. But that again is not very advisable for anyone, either for adults or for children. So if we want to make the best use of this time, and if we want to have a fruitful time, then please ensure that there's a regular routine being followed by the family. Children of this age should have a regular sleeping time, and correspondingly, they should have a regular time to wake up. Do not allow them to sleep till 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, thinking that right now it's vacation time or they don't have to go to school, because these habits need to be inculcated from this very age. If the waking and sleeping times are fixed, then the rest of the schedule can fall in place. Meal times also should be regular. And why I am emphasizing so much on regularity, this is because of a psychological fact. It's not just because elders say that you should be regular, but psychologically, children of this age, children below 10 years of age, or children who are, in the primary school, for them, a structured life or usual routine is very important. That is for the psychological well-being of the child. When there are too many uncertainties in the child's life, when he doesn't know what time his tutor is coming or what time he has to sit down to study or what time is his meal time, if everything is at a loose end, it is not psychologically good for a child. Children need certain boundaries. Children need a structure. So he should know this is my time to wake up, this is my time to attend my online classes, this is the time for my homework or whatever work is to be done. And likewise, he should know this is my time for recreation, this is my time for play, this is my time for some, family time. That is the best way to maintain the psychological well-being of a child. And you will also find that when there's a regular routine, even you will find it easier to help the child and to manage your own affairs. Now, one thing that you may feel is that this is a time when often house help is also not available. So you may feel that as a lady of the house, you have all the responsibilities of, looking after the family, maintaining the house, maybe cooking, the kitchen work, and everything. And very often mothers start feeling overwhelmed. They don't know how to cope, and they feel that the entire burden has come on them. So here I would like to share with you, please, it's also very important for your children to understand that there are responsibilities in the house, and please feel free to share that responsibility with the children. Now you will say, what responsibility can I give to a child of 8 years or 10 years? You will be surprised how much children are capable of. As psychologists, we can say that children have a lot of capacity, but most of the time what happens is we think these are small. They are too small to handle anything. They will, break something, or they will hurt themselves, or they will not be able to perform the task properly. So what I'm saying is we often underestimate the abilities of our children. And because we underestimate, we do two things. Either we stop them from doing something. The child wants to do something, you say, no, 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 don't do that, don't touch that, it'll break. You'll drop something, you'll dirty something. So we are stopping them all the time. And also because we underestimate, we do not assign them tasks which they are quite capable of doing. So give them a chance. That is my request to you. Give a chance to your children to show what they are capable of. So if they want to do something new, and it's so common at this age, you may be cooking in the kitchen and your little daughter comes and says, I want to help you, I want to work with you, I want to make chapatis, or I want to chop vegetables. And what is our common reaction? Our common reaction is, no, 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 you'll cut your hand, you'll burn yourself, you'll drop something, you will dirty the kitchen. So you go out and play, I'll do it myself. Isn't that what we often do? But just try out as an experiment. Allow the child to help you. Whatever you are doing, let him assist you, let him do it with you. And you will find that they will be able to do it very well. And with a little bit of patience, if you give them a little bit of instruction and a little bit of training, they will learn to perform all these tasks very well. But what we often do is, when the child wants to do it, we stop him. And then that time passes. And then the child himself loses interest. And then he doesn't want to come back to it. And then when he's a teenager, then we say, oh, he doesn't do any work. He doesn't share any of my responsibility. He's only into his laptop or into his mobile. So what has happened? When he wanted to do it with us, we sent him away. Now that time is gone, he has lost interest, and now we are saying he doesn't want to do it. So don't allow that to happen. When your child wants to do something with you, that's the best time to teach him. He may, of course, take a little time to learn to do it perfectly. But if you give him that opportunity, he will learn. And that is one way of sharing your work. So in present times, I don't think that it is fair to expect one lady of the house to perform all the duties. It is in these times, everything that has to be done, it is a combined responsibility of everyone living in the family, whether it is the menfolk, whether it is the children. So let us divide the work so that no one single person is overburdened. And you will also see when we divide the work and we do things together, then it is not a drudgery. Then it is not a chore. Then it can become an enjoyable activity. So if supposing the cleaning has to be done and you're doing it with your children, or 2 or 3 people are doing it together, even that can become an enjoyable activity. Or even cooking or gardening or any activity which has to be done. When we do it together with a proper frame of mind, with a happy frame of mind, then every activity becomes enjoyable. So you can cook a meal also together in which everybody has a good time. So parents, it is very important to assign small responsibilities to your child. It should be age appropriate. So your child, so if there is a pet in the family, or if you have plants which need to be watered, or it is something as simple as, you know, dusting his own table, or setting his own book, or cleaning out his own cupboard. Engage the child with yourself, and gradually he will learn to do it himself on his own. Another thing very important, which where you can keep your child engaged, is if there are elders in the house. Train your children to do something for the elders. Maybe carry them their meals, or carry them their snacks, or their cup of tea, or their medicine, or any small task which they need to perform. This will have two benefits. You may say, why should I ask my child to, work for someone? This is not work. Don't look upon it as something undesirable or unpleasant. It is, the child needs to learn the value of caring, of looking after other people who may not be very well, or who may be elderly, or who may be, needing help. That is how the child learns care and compassion. And that's a virtue which we all need in the coming times. We all need to be concerned about each other. We all need to help each other wherever required. So give these responsibilities to your children. Or feeding the pet, if there's a dog in the family, or a bird in the family, or a cat. So you tell the child that it is your duty to feed the pet, your duty to see that his water plate is full of water, because these are summer times, don't allow him to go thirsty. Or if there are plants in your balcony or plants in your house, you tell the child it is your duty to see that the plants are not thirsty. They must also, you like to drink water, your plants also need to drink water. You must water them at the set time. So, parents, this is not just about sharing the housework, but also a very deep psychological fact which is attached to it. Of course, the work is getting done. That is one benefit. But another benefit for your child is the feeling of self-esteem and competence which the child is going to get. So what do I need by competence? What do I mean by competence? Competence means a child's feeling, or anybody or any individual's feeling, that I am capable, I can do this. That confidence that yes, I can do this task. And how will that confidence come? I'm sure you all want your child to be confident that yes, I can do something. That competence will only come by doing. If your child knows that yes, I can perform this particular task, I water all my plants, he sees those plants growing. Maybe those plants are bearing fruits or vegetables or flowers. He feels, yes, I have done it. I can grow my plants. I can look after my plants. Or I can look after my dadaji, or I can do something for my grandmother. Or I can help my mother in, I can chop vegetables, or I can, lay the table, or I can fold my own clothes. So these are very small tasks. But at one level they are small, at the other level they are not small at all. In fact, it is the small things of life which determine our quality of life. So we have to lay that foundation right now. So allow your child to do things. Do not try to shield him from everything. Very often what happens is that because we are uncertain, our child is too small, so will he be able to do it? We feel it is safer if the child is just watching TV, or sitting with his iPad, or sitting with his phone. We feel, okay, at least he's out of trouble. He's not bothering me. The children are not fighting. There is peace in the house. So yes, if the child is watching TV all the time, or on his phone all the time, there may be peace in the house. but it is not helping the child in any way. Simply by watching TV and by spending the time or by playing video games, he may not be bothering you, but his own growth is not taking place. His own growth, his physical growth, his mental growth, and above all, his emotional growth will take place only when he's living life, not if he's just living a virtual life. So, parents, allow your child to live a real life. There may be some clashes, there may be some fights between the siblings. Sometimes they'll fight with each other, sometimes they'll shout and yell, sometimes they'll jump around, or they'll pull each other's hair, or maybe even hit each other. But that part is growing up. And one thing which I would like to also share with you is that if your children, supposing you have two children, or maybe there are three children in the house, whatever, and they may be fighting sometimes, what we do often is we interrupt the fight. We try to, play judge. We try to punish one and not punish the other. We try to fix blame. Who started the fight? What happened? And then you will have your other child saying, you always take that one side. You never listen to what I am saying. That's a very common situation in the house. So my suggestion to you is that for these little fights that break out between children, do not butt in and do not try to play the judge. Best is just ignore them. If they come crying to you, Mama, he hit me, he took away my pen, he snatched my biscuit, or whatever, you tell them he's your brother or sister, whatever, and you sort out between yourselves. You deal with him yourself. Sort out your fight yourself. Don't come crying to me. Now you may say, oh, ma'am is being very cruel. She is not allowing me to interrupt. She is not allowing me to save my child. But parents, there's a very significant psychological fact here. When a child fights and you interrupt and you try to, settle matters, what message are we sending? The psychological message, the hidden message behind this action is that you are not capable of solving your own dispute. You need me to solve your dispute. So what are we doing? We are preventing the development of competence in the child. You see, these little disputes, you should look upon them as rehearsal for the larger fights which we have to fight in the world. When a child goes out into the world, he has to fight with everyone. When I say fight, it means that he has to stand up for himself. The world can sometimes be a cruel place. Everything doesn't come to us on a plate. We have to struggle for things. We have to deal with our colleagues. We have to deal with our superiors. We have to deal with clients. We have to deal with customers. And every person may create a difficult situation for us. So that training has to be given from childhood. How to solve conflict. Conflict resolution is a very important psychological topic. And we teach that there are different ways of solving conflict. That can be compromise, there can be, negotiation, there may be adjustment, there may be accommodation, where you learn to give and take. So that give and take, the child learns from his siblings. So if the elder one is too demanding, then how is the younger one going to deal with that? Either he will fulfill all the demands, or he will learn some smart ways of avoiding the demand, whatever. So what happens is that when we interrupt and when we try to defend one child or protect the child, then we are hampering this growth. We are preventing the child from learning ways of resolving conflicts. And we are making him dependent on ourselves. So, and you will also find that if you have been in the habit of supporting one child, that child will get into the habit of running to you every time a dispute breaks out. So if the son is older and the daughter is younger, and so you feel that I must support my daughter because she is younger, so every time the elder brother does something, the younger daughter will come running to the mother, Mama, he's doing this, Mama, he's doing that. So she has learned a pattern of dependency, which is not healthy for her. But if you tell her, no, he's your elder brother, you deal with him. You see how you have to solve this issue. Then she will have to develop her own resources. Then either she'll have to become stronger to face whatever situation the brother is making for her. So it is best if you do not always interfere in the disputes of your children, and you will also find it more peaceful for yourself. And you will also find that 1 minute they'll be fighting and shouting and yelling, and then if you just leave them together, you don't interfere, half an hour later you'll see they are playing together. So something has happened and they have somehow, come to terms with each other, and now they are playing. So you will realize that you didn't really need to interfere also. So I would request, just try this out as an experiment. Try doing it. Of course, sometimes when habit patterns have been formed, your children will resist. If you say, no, I'm not getting into it, they will cry harder, or they will beg you harder, please do something. So, but use your judgment and give them a chance to, deal with each other in their own way. Do it as an experiment and see what the results are. So, these were some of the tips that I wanted to give you. Some other things that we can also do are allow the child to develop also a hobby or something creative. Along with studies, that is also very important. Some recreation. Nowadays, children are not able to go out to play, so it's important to keep them engaged. So this is a good time, again, where we can use technology. Maybe you can use some skill they can use, they can learn by seeing YouTube videos. There are so many videos of all kinds. So that is a constructive use of technology rather than just playing games on the mobile or just watching some mindless TV programs. You tell them, okay, you learn to do this particular task through a YouTube video, or learn some online, they can learn some language, or they can practice their art and craft, or just hear some songs and dance. So again, why is this important? So a hobby, again, parents, is not just for passing the time. Of course, it is a constructive use of time. But again, there's another level to it. And what is that? That when a child develops a skill, like, for instance, some child may dance well, some child is painting well. If he's doing that, just put his paintings on the wall, display them. Or he's making some craft, or maybe he has learned to cook something. That again brings in a feeling of confidence that yes, I can do this. That again develops that feeling of competence and self-esteem. And we have also seen in psychological researches, sometimes parents feel, oh, if he's doing all that, his studies will suffer. He will have no time to study. But no, we have found that when a child is doing well in any extracurricular activity, the confidence that he gets from there, that feel-good factor which he gets from there, that improves his study performance also. And he learns to divide his time well. He learns to structure his time, that I have to study and I also have to pursue my hobby. So he becomes more efficient at time management. If he's only studying, if he knows I have the whole day to study, then he will just be sitting with his books are there in front of him, mind is somewhere else. So there's not much output. But if he knows I have limited time, 1 hour I have to do my music, and then 1 hour I have to do my study, so then he's more focused. He's utilizing his energy in a more focused way to get better output. And that's the kind of training that we need for our children as they are growing up. So let us use this pandemic time to develop these life skills in our children. It's not just about passing an exam and going to the next class. It is about what lifelong learning we are having. What are the life skills that we are learning and teaching to our children? And it is those which will help them in their journey of life when they encounter the difficulties which life keeps keeps sending our way. So these were some of the points which I wanted to put before you, parents. If anyone wants to say something or ask anything, you're most welcome. And thank you all for being such patient listeners. Thank you.
So now, good afternoon, everyone. Once again, I hope each and every parent must have listened to ma'am with lots of attention. In case you have got any queries which you would like to put forward to ma'am, then the platform is open for the same. So it seems, Poonam ma'am, the way you have taken each and every, oh, there is someone. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, please.
Yeah, hi ma'am. Hi everyone. Actually, I had just one query. I heard your full seminar. My son, he's like, though he's like he's generally active kid, and like when this lockdown and all things got better, he was playing and again interested in his hobbies. But now the thing is like again, it's a situation of lockdown kind of, and so he has actually lost interest in his hobbies. What two things, he attends at school and then he's like, I want to play on my iPad. Though I try to like let's play some carom game, let's play something else, but he is like stuck to know. I okay, we'll do after some time. I'll do after some time. So can you suggest how I can detach him? Like I try to inculcate ki chalo help me out. I am tired. Just I try to make stories that I am tired. You should help mama and all that, but it's not working this time.
And
So
ma'am, what
how?
does he do on his iPad? What is he using
Actually,
CapCut?
sometimes he's playing games, online games with his friends. Sometimes he's watching some videos. Though I keep on telling me you watch. Sometimes he's watching informative videos, or sometimes he's watching just like
So yes,
without anything.
I get your point. And what's happening is that uh, the iPad, the screen time is extremely addictive, and that is something that we have to understand as parents, because these games, these activities, they're all designed. You see, they are designed also by psychologists, because
Yeah.
it is said that the Apple company hires more psychologists than engineers. So they are using that knowledge to design these activities in such a way that they hook a person. And so you can see that it is a deliberate attempt to make people addicted to those programs. So you as a parent and you as a well-wisher for your child, you have to limit the screen time. And that you can do if these techniques are not working, you will have to put a limit that, okay, not more than 1 or 2 hours of screen time. That's where you have to use your parental authority. The child will resist. The child will resist because that pull of the iPad is too strong. But knowing the consequences and knowing the pitfalls, you will have to take a stand. So don't think that you will damage the child by being strict. Sometimes we have to impose certain rules, and that's what I meant when I said you need to structure the child's day. If he has free time, if there's no structure to it, then obviously he will be drawn to the screen and he will spend time there. So you will need to set the limits. We say you have to set the boundaries. That screen time only for so much. Rest of the time we have to do other activities, and then you have to provide him some alternatives. Initially he will resist because it's like an addict. If you from a smoker you don't allow him to smoke, what will happen? He will resist. He'll say you are the cruelest person. But at some time we have to take that action. So accordingly, I would like you to plan out how you will stop your child.
Okay, ma'am. Actually, I'm trying. I'm like, let's play carom together. Let's play Ludo together.
No,
Okay.
first, ma'am, you will have to limit the screen time. You have to take a stand there. That iPad is not available beyond that window. Then only you will be able to provide a substitute. As long as you're not doing that, he says, I don't want to play carom, I want the iPad, and you allow him the iPad. Obviously, the matter will continue. It will not
And
stop.
then he starts switching on the TV. Okay, I will watch something. Okay, let's watch
Screen time,
something.
ma'am. Screen time is
Yes,
screen.
that
Any
is very addictive.
it could be TV, it could be phone, it could be iPad, it could be any screen. Screen time has to be met.
Okay, ma'am.
All the best, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more queries, parents? All right. So thank you so much, ma'am. I can see that we all have greatly benefited from the useful parenting tips that have been shared by you. Now I would request Savita ma'am, our principal, to kindly share the vote of thanks with us.
Once again, Dr. Devdutt, I'm really blessed, honored, and thankful on behalf of each and every parent, every child of the Millennium School, Sector 119 in Noida. You are absolutely right. Parenting is one of the toughest job assigned to human race, and parenting during COVID time adds couple of more exponentials to it. But the way you have explained the nitty gritty, the fine tips which have been shared by you on this platform today, I was looking at the number of moms with their headphone ons because they never wanted to be disturbed by anyone else in the house, and they're definitely going to work on these small simple tips, because many a times we know things but we take them for granted and we try to surrender or give up to the situation without realizing what could be the later consequences of that, not only for this pandemic but for the rest of the life. So on this note, I'll request all the moms, all the dads, that whatever ma'am has shared with you, she's a reservoir of knowledge, she is an authority in the subject. Please take these tips seriously. So thank you so much for all your time, and God bless us all. Stay healthy, stay fit, and do take care of your kids and people around. So thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
God
All the
bless.
best.
Thank you, Poonam ma'am. Thank you, Savita ma'am. So this brings us to the end of a very informative session. So we look forward to more such similar sessions in future. Thank you all the parents for your active participation. Thank you so much.
Thanks.